He left it all to me. I said it slowly, almost reverently, as if speaking it too fast might make it untrue. The words echoed in the room like a bomb had just gone off, but without the sound, just the silence that follows when everyone's ears are still ringing. My stepmother Marlene's expression froze mid-smirk, her wine-red lips twitching. Grant, my smug, entitled half-brother, let out a bark of laughter that died in his throat the moment he saw the lawyer's face. I stood there, the copy of my father's will trembling slightly in my hand, not from nerves, but from something deeper. Something colder. For years, I had been the afterthought. The forgotten one. The unwanted daughter from the previous life. Marlene made sure of that. She smiled through her teeth while pushing me further to the edge of every photo, every memory, every ounce of what used to be home. And Grant? He followed her lead like a puppy, blind to how much venom she dripped into him. But now, the tides had shifted. My father, the man they claimed had forgotten me, had left them nothing. And me? He left me everything. Not just the money. Not just the house. The legacy. The secrets. The key to dismantling every lie they built. And I wasn't going to be graceful about it. They thought I'd show up at the will reading like a grieving ornament, silent, forgettable, maybe offered a condolence check out of pity. But they didn't know what my father had planned. They didn't know what he left behind, not just for me, but for them to choke on. My name is Elise Vaughn, and for most of my life, I was treated like the ghost of a family no one wanted to remember. My stepmother Marlene and her precious son Grant mocked me like I didn't exist. Until the day they learned the truth. Until they realized it was me, not them, holding everything. My mother died when I was 12. It wasn't sudden, we had known it was coming, but that didn't soften the blow. Cancer, that cruel and silent thief, had taken her over months, and by the end, she wasn't even recognizable. I remember sitting outside her hospital room, hugging my knees to my chest, listening to the beep-beep of her machines through the wall while my father begged the doctors for more time. After she passed, he shattered. Not in the dramatic, bottle-breaking kind of way, but in the slow, hollowing sense. He moved like he was underwater. Silent dinners. Forgotten birthdays. And then, Marlene. She worked in the same law firm as my father. At first, she was just a friend dropping off files, bringing coffee, offering support. But within a year, she was living in our house. Within 2, they were married. I tried to accept her. I really did. She was beautiful, poised, always wearing muted perfume that clung to the air long after she left the room. She smiled a lot, but never at me. Her kindness was strategic, surgical, and I quickly learned that my presence was inconvenient. She didn't yell or insult. No, she was subtler than that. I'd come down for dinner and find only 2 plates set. "Oh, we assumed you were out," she'd say, blinking with mock surprise. I'd be forgotten when they went to the movies. It was last minute, she'd explain. She never needed to raise her voice to push me out. She just made me invisible. When Grant was born, any remaining attention my father had left for me disappeared. He was Marlene's baby, the miracle child. Blonde curls, dimples, everything she wasn't but wanted to own. Dad adored him. I tried to be happy for them. I really did. But there's only so many times a teenage girl can be told, "Take the picture, Elise," instead of being in it. I moved out the second I turned 18. I didn't go far. I was still attached to the idea that maybe, just maybe, I could earn my place back. I sent birthday cards. Called on holidays. Drove over when Grant graduated middle school, then high school, then college. Each time, Marlene welcomed me with that same icy smile. "Oh, Elise." What a surprise. Like I wasn't family. Like I was an old coworker who hadn't gotten the hint. One Christmas, I brought a homemade pie, my mother's recipe. Marlene set it aside and never served it. She made sure Grant opened all his gifts first, while mine, a scarf and socks, sat in a corner like an afterthought. That was the year I stopped pretending it didn't hurt. Still, I stayed connected to Dad. As detached as he became, he always answered when I called. There was something in his voice when he spoke to me, regret, maybe. Or guilt. We had coffee once every few months, always in secret, always rushed. I could tell Marlene didn't approve. He never said it, but I saw it in how he looked over his shoulder, how he checked the time every few minutes. "She doesn't understand," he once said. I didn't ask who she was. I already knew. Then came the diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Terminal. He called me himself. I could tell by the way he said my name that he was already mourning himself. "I don't have much time, sweetheart," he said. "But there are things I need to make right." I dropped everything. Took time off work. Moved closer. Marlene didn't like it. Not one bit. "You don't need to hover," she said on my second visit. "He's being well cared for." But he wanted me there. I sat with him for hours, sometimes in silence, sometimes reading. He'd squeeze my hand, whisper apologies he never finished. I never pushed him. I just wanted to be near him, even if it was for the end. Grant came by once, during those final weeks. He was too busy with his new startup. Too busy to watch the man who raised him slip away. Marlene popped in and out, more concerned with managing nurses and schedules than sitting at his bedside. I watched my father fade with every visit, his frame shrinking, his eyes sinking deeper. But then, something strange happened. 3 days before he died, he was lucid. Completely present. He held my hand tightly and said, "It's not going to be easy. But you'll understand soon." He didn't elaborate. Just nodded toward the old wooden chest in the corner of the room. I made sure. That was the last time he spoke to me. After the funeral, Marlene was all crocodile tears and forced grace. "He loved you," she said, placing a fake sympathy hand on my shoulder. He really did. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust myself not to scream. Then came the call from the lawyer. Mandatory will reading. All family must be present. I didn't expect much. Maybe a locket. A photograph. A token of affection to acknowledge that he remembered me. I almost didn't go. But something inside me, something ancient and bruised, whispered, "Go. Just go." And thank God I did. Because when the lawyer read the words, "I leave my entire estate to my daughter, Elise Vaughn," the world stopped spinning. At first, there was a pause, just a half-second of stunned, motionless silence, before the room detonated. Grant let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh that ricocheted off the mahogany walls like a firecracker in a chapel. "Yeah, right," he scoffed, spinning in his chair toward the lawyer. "Nice prank. Now, let's get to the real part." Marlene didn't even laugh. Her face was carved in disbelief, but her eyes flicked to me like knives. The lawyer, Mr. Boudreau, didn't flinch. "There is no other part. Mr. Vaughn's assets, holdings, trusts, and all real and liquid property were legally reassigned to Ms. Elise Vaughn under advisement, with full mental competency confirmed by 2 physicians." He looked up. "There's also a recorded video of the signing, if that's necessary for your peace of mind." Marlene's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Grant slammed his hand on the table. "That's bull. He wouldn't do that. She manipulated him. She was feeding him pills. She twisted his mind when he was sick." I stayed quiet. It took every ounce of control I had to not smirk, to not gloat. But my hands rested calmly in my lap. I didn't need to say anything. Their meltdown was the symphony, and I was just enjoying the crescendo. "You're not even part of this family," Grant hissed, standing. "You left. You disappeared for years and only showed up when Dad was dying." "That's rich," I said finally, keeping my tone flat. "I was there almost every day. You came once. For 20 minutes. He turned red. Marlene jumped in, voice trembling between shock and rage. "You think you deserve all of it? After everything we built? You think this stunt means anything? Your father wasn't in his right mind." "He was clear," Mr. Boudreau said sternly. "And the will is airtight. You're welcome to challenge it in probate court, but I assure you it won't end well for you." She ignored him, rounding on me. You selfish little girl. You were always jealous. Always looking for attention. You hated me from the beginning. Don't think I didn't see it. You poisoned him against us. I felt my jaw tighten. I had promised myself I'd stay calm, but something cracked inside me, years of being erased, gaslit, shoved to the side. He loved you, I said quietly, voice low but firm. Despite everything, he tried to love you. But he saw the truth. In the end, he couldn't ignore it anymore. Marlene's fury flared. You're lying. She grabbed at the documents on the table and started flipping through them, like she could magic her name back onto the pages through sheer will. There has to be a clause. Some mistake. He wouldn't do this. She looked at Grant, desperate now. Say something. Do something. Grant was frozen. His face pale. His breath short. She can't. Take the house, he muttered. That house is ours. I looked directly at him, calm and even. No, it never was. Marlene lunged across the table, pointing a manicured finger at my chest. You think this is over? You think you've won? Her voice cracked. You're still nothing. You're still that pathetic girl standing in the hallway, begging to be seen. I stood slowly. My chair barely made a sound. I leaned forward just enough for her to feel my presence, my control. And yet somehow, I'm the one holding everything you ever wanted. Mr. Boudreau cleared his throat. If there are no further questions, we can conclude the session. He slid a final folder toward me, thick with documents. This includes the deed transfer, asset breakdown, and access codes to the trust accounts. All have been released to your name as of today. I took the folder with both hands, nodded once, and turned to walk out. Behind me, I heard a sob, sharp, stifled. I didn't know if it came from Marlene or Grant. I didn't care. As I stepped into the hallway, the air felt different. Lighter. Like for the first time in decades, I could breathe without asking permission. I stood there for a moment, folder against my chest, listening to the echo of my own footsteps, and realized I had crossed a threshold. The old Elise, the one who begged to be acknowledged, to be loved, died in that room. And in her place, something new had risen. Not just someone with money. Not just someone with power. Someone with nothing left to lose. It was 2 days later when the call came. I was in my kitchen, pouring coffee into one of Dad's old ceramic mugs, the one with a faded fish on the side he always said was ugly but lucky. The phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it. But something told me to answer. Elise Vaughn, the voice asked. Male. Polite. Measured. This is Attorney Dennis Keating. I represent your late father's private estate interests. There's an additional item that was not included in the original reading due to its sensitive nature. It was placed under a delayed release, by his instruction. Are you available to come into my office this afternoon? My pulse spiked. Yes, absolutely. I arrived an hour early. Keating's office was in a modest building, nothing flashy, nothing corporate. Just walls lined with books and a desk that looked older than me. He gestured for me to sit, then handed me a slim black envelope. This is your father's final personal message. He requested you read it here alone, before I give you the rest. The envelope was heavier than it looked. My name was written in his hand, those careful, angular letters I used to trace with my finger as a child. I opened it slowly, the paper inside crinkling as I unfolded it. Elise, if you're holding this, then the truth is already in motion. But there's one more thing you need to know. One more deception I could never live with. You remember how fast Marlene and I got married? I told you it was sudden because love doesn't follow rules. That wasn't the whole truth. For months before the wedding, she told me she was pregnant. She claimed it was mine. I believed her, wanted to believe her. I thought maybe this was my second chance to be a better husband, a better father. But I had doubts. From the beginning. Doubts that festered over the years. I saw how she treated you. How she made you feel like an outsider in your own home. I let it happen because I was afraid that if I questioned her, I'd lose what little peace I had left. That fear made me weak. 2 years ago, I finally did the test. Grant isn't my son. I froze. The words seemed to ripple on the page. My hands tightened around the paper. He doesn't know. As far as he's concerned, I'm his father. And maybe that's what he needs to believe. But you deserve to know the truth. She manipulated everything, Elise. Lied from the start. Took my silence as permission. And I let her. I thought I was protecting you, but really, I was protecting myself. I'm sorry. For the years you spent wondering why you weren't enough. It was never you. It was always me. I was weak where I should have been strong. You were my only child. You still are. Whatever you decide to do with this truth, use it, destroy it, bury it, I trust you. With everything. Dad. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat there, paper trembling in my hands, and felt the universe tilt. So many memories suddenly sharpened in my mind. The way Dad flinched when Grant hugged him, the look in his eyes when Marlene spoke for him, the way he would hesitate every time he called Grant son. The clues had been there all along. I just never saw them for what they were. Keating cleared his throat gently. There's more, he said. Along with that letter, your father instructed us to release a sealed safe deposit box in your name. It contains documentation and a video. I didn't ask what was in the video. I knew. Later that night, I sat alone in my father's study, mine now, watching his face flicker on the screen. He looked tired, thin, but his voice was strong. If you're watching this, Elise, then you've seen everything. I don't know if this makes things easier or harder, but I needed you to know. Grant was never my blood. You were. Always. Everything I did for him, I should have done for you. I sat there long after the video ended. In silence. In stillness. In the heat of a truth that burned clean through the past. They lied. For decades. But now the lie belonged to me. And I intended to use it. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I didn't toss and turn in bed like I normally did, replaying old conversations or wondering if I should have said more. I got up, brewed a pot of strong black coffee, sat at my father's old desk, and opened my laptop. I didn't feel like a woman in mourning anymore. I felt like a woman with purpose. The kind of purpose that makes your hands steady and your heart beat slow. I started with the basics, documents, records, timelines. I created folders labeled property transfers, will documentation, DNA and paternity, video evidence, and legal communications. I wasn't building a case. Not yet. I was building leverage. I knew Marlene well enough to understand that she wasn't going to walk away quietly. She'd come back. They always do. But this time, I'd be ready. By the afternoon, my email pinged. Just as expected. Subject, let's talk. From Marlene Vaughn. Body, Elise, I think we've both had time to cool down. I don't want this to get ugly. Let's talk. You know where to find me. No apology. No remorse. Just threat disguised as peace. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I drove to their house, my house, technically, since the deed was in my name now. I parked across the street and watched for a while. Grant's car was in the driveway. So was hers. The lights were on in the kitchen. I wondered if they were making dinner like nothing had happened. Boiling water and seasoning steak while their entire world was slipping through their fingers. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. I just wanted them to feel it, that invisible presence watching from the shadows. The reminder that I wasn't going away. That I was real now. Tangible. Dangerous. Back at the house, I found myself standing in front of my father's bookcase. It was massive, filled with leather-bound volumes and business manuals, but I noticed something strange. A small bronze lion on the third shelf was slightly out of place. Curious, I pulled it gently. A soft click sounded. A hidden compartment swung open. Inside, I found a slim red journal, my father's handwriting all over the front page. It wasn't just a journal. It was a record. Dozens of entries spanning years. He had kept notes of every argument, every deception, every time Marlene manipulated him. One entry stood out, dated 7 years ago. She told me again that Elise was ungrateful, that she didn't deserve anything. I said nothing. I hate myself for it. Elise looked so hurt at dinner tonight. Her pie was untouched. I should have said something, but I didn't. I read it again and again. He had seen it. He had known. I scanned the pages into a locked PDF, uploaded it to 3 cloud backups, and sent copies to my lawyer with strict instructions. If anything happened to me, or if any legal claim was made against the will, it would be released in full. I was done playing nice. The next day, Marlene called again. I answered this time. "Elise," she began, her tone sweet as syrup. "We need to talk. There's no need for lawyers. This is still a family matter." "Is it?" I asked. "Because it feels like a crime scene." A pause. Then, "What do you want?" There it was. The mask cracking. "I already have everything," I said. "But you know that. I just want you to stop pretending." "Elise," she hissed, anger bubbling now, "you don't understand what you're doing. There are consequences to all this." "You mean consequences like lying about your son's paternity? Or living off my father's money while isolating me for decades?" I asked. "Because if we're talking about consequences, we should be thorough." "You're blackmailing me." "No," I said calmly. "I'm warning you." A beat of silence. Then she hung up. 2 hours later, Grant texted me. Not called. Texted. "You destroyed our family." I stared at it for a long time. Then typed. It was already broken. I just turned the lights on. No response. The tension didn't break after that, it escalated. I began noticing strange things. A neighbor told me a woman came to my mailbox and rifled through it. My trash bin was knocked over twice in 1 week. A car I didn't recognize sat idling outside the house for an hour with tinted windows. I took photos. Called a security company. Installed cameras and motion lights. I didn't feel scared. I felt electric. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a storm brewing on the edge of everything they thought they could control. And they didn't know what day I'd hit. But when I did, they wouldn't be ready. It was a Thursday morning when the summons arrived. A heavy white envelope, hand-delivered, addressed in looping cursive to Elise Vaughn, estate executor. Inside was a formal notice. Marlene Vaughn and Grant Vaughn intended to contest the will in probate court. Their grounds? Undue influence. Mental instability. Emotional coercion. It was laughable, pathetic, really. But it wasn't unexpected. This was their last card. And now it was on the table. I let my lawyer handle the logistics. Meanwhile, I planned something else. The night before the hearing, I requested a meeting. In person. Their turf. Marlene answered the door, her face pulled tight like a mask too small for her skull. Her eyes flicked over my suit, the manila folder in my hand, the calm in my voice. "Elise," she said coolly. "Didn't expect you to come crawling to us before court." "I'm not crawling," I replied, stepping inside uninvited. "I'm giving you one last chance to walk away." Quietly. The house was exactly as I remembered it, polished, expensive, hollow. Grant appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "Let me guess," he said. "You're here to beg." I looked between them, set the folder down on the dining table, and opened it slowly. First, the notarized will. Then, the letter from my father, the original, with his signature, his handwriting. I watched Marlene's eyes flick across the words, her breath catching at the paragraph about Grant's paternity. She reached for it, but I pulled it away. Not yet. Next, I laid out the photos of the hidden journal. Screenshots of entries. Dates. His confessions. His shame. His acknowledgement of her cruelty. Grant stepped forward. "What is this?" he demanded. "What are you trying to do?" "Tell the truth," I said. "What you do with it is up to you." Finally, I took out the USB stick. This contains the video he recorded 2 days before he died. He names me as his only child. He explains everything. If we go to court, it becomes public record. If you back off, it stays private. Marlene's hand was trembling now. "You're bluffing." I leaned in. You want to bet your future on that? The room was silent. Tense. Grant looked at his mother, then back at me. Why are you doing this? He asked. You already won. I almost laughed. This isn't about winning, Grant. It's about making sure people like you and her don't get to rewrite reality. I turned to leave, folder back in hand. Drop the case, or I'll let the world watch your mother lie for 20 years. Your call. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in months. The next morning, I received a formal withdrawal from their legal counsel. They had chosen to honor the original will without further proceedings. Of course they did. But that wasn't the end. 2 weeks later, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Me, as a little girl, maybe 6 years old, sitting on my father's shoulders, laughing in a garden full of sunflowers. On the back, written in soft blue ink, I always saw you. There were no initials. No explanation. Just those 5 words. I stared at that photo for a long time. Because for the first time, I believed them. Spring arrived like a promise kept. The trees outside the study window exploded in green. The air smelled of cut grass and rain, and for the first time in decades, silence no longer felt like loneliness. It felt like peace. I had redecorated the house slowly, room by room, not to erase the past, but to reclaim it. The old dining table, where I once sat ignored during holidays, was gone, replaced with a warm wooden one, smaller, intimate. The walls were no longer beige and lifeless. They held color now. Photographs. Books. Plants that somehow refused to die. I spent mornings reading on the porch my father never let me use, wrapped in a blanket and sipping coffee from that same ugly lucky mug. Sometimes I thought about him, about the man he used to be, the man he became, and the man I forgave. It wasn't a clean forgiveness. It came in waves. Some days I still felt the echo of what he let happen. But I didn't carry it like a stone anymore. I saw Marlene once more, by accident. It was at the post office, of all places. She didn't see me at first. She was arguing with the clerk about a late delivery, wearing oversized sunglasses and a designer coat from 2 seasons ago, still trying to look like someone who mattered. When she turned and saw me, something flickered in her eyes. Not hate, not even fear, just absence, like the oxygen had been sucked out of her. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. We didn't need to. Grant moved out of state, according to one of Dad's old business partners. Started over, changed his last name back to his mother's maiden one. I heard he was trying to launch a podcast about legacy and identity. Irony has a wicked sense of humor. As for me, I stayed. I hosted dinners. Reconnected with friends. I even adopted a dog, a scruffy mutt from the shelter that barked at every delivery man but snored like a chainsaw when he slept. I named him Lucky. Because I was. Not in the conventional sense, not because of money or property or a last minute will that rewrote history. I was lucky because I survived all of it and came out stronger. I was lucky because the truth, buried for decades, finally saw daylight. I was lucky because I no longer lived for their approval. I lived for me. One Sunday, I was walking Lucky by the lake, the same one where my father used to take me fishing before Marlene ever stepped into our lives. The sun was low, golden light skipping across the water. I sat on a bench and pulled that old photograph from my coat pocket, the one of me on his shoulders, laughing into the sky. I kept it with me now. Not because I needed the memory, but because it reminded me that I had always existed, even when they tried to pretend I hadn't. And for the first time, I whispered something into the wind I'd never said out loud before. I forgive you, Dad. The wind shifted. Gentle. Warm. Almost like an answer.